We call it a take for 99, where we give you a very expensive take for a cheap price. And Zach, this is going to be a good one, and I want to play. I want to get some background music here to kind of set the mood with this take that I'm about to spill right now. Obviously, we are getting down to the nitty gritty when we talk about the NBA. Psych, I lied, but Zach, you made a very good point about the NBA that I was, going to go at when you brought us in with the intro. You talked about how you're not looking forward to, the game, the game tonight. Obviously, the game, on Saturday was a little bit boring. It wasn't amusing, and I definitely want to end my take there because the reality is, analytics is not the sole cause of death in the NBA. It's not. Now, a report came out a couple days ago that NBA ratings are down 48% since 2012, down 28% this year alone on ESPN. And let's face it, basketball has become an unwatchable sport that has become irrelevant in the sports landscape, in the sports media in general. And a lot of people are pointing to the analytics as a reason of why ratings are falling down. They put an emphasis on the three-point shot in the NBA. Teams back then shot 15.8% of threes per game 2 decades ago. Now that's up. Teams are taking 37.5 per attempts this year at the three-point range. And look, half of Boston's shots this year are three-point attempts. Okay, let that sink in. And you look around the league, and the shot selection is not diversified across the league. The low post play is in stink right now. The mid-range jumper is in stink right now. The fast breaks are leading to three-point shots, not viral dunks anymore. And where has the league gone? And it's incentivizing players with a full bag of skill sets to settle for a three-point shot. My guy Anthony Edwards is shooting like Klay Thompson instead of being Anthony Edwards. He got a full bag. He's not using it anymore. Okay, the Chicago Bulls and the Hornets combined for 75 missed three-point shots on Friday night. A total of 97 threes were taken in that game. But the reality is, it's not only analytics, it's load management, it's dying rivalries, it's fans struggling to watch the games due to too many subscriptions required. It's about the politics as well. You know what? Let me break it down more directly. You know what's really bringing down the NBA ratings? Okay, it's this.
He's pathetic. He's small. He's a whiner. We all know that. But you wouldn't have him babysit your kids. You wouldn't hire him if you had a small business. You want that man in your business? There's no way. But you're going to vote for him for president because he's strong? I mean, Kamala Harris whipped his ass in the debate, just obviously, and he's running ever since. He doesn't want any part of her because, as she said before, she's eaten many of his type for lunch.
That's what's ruining the NBA in a nutshell right there. Politics is ruining the NBA right now, okay? Now, the NBA is too political for its own good, okay? The people spoken, they voted, and clearly politics should be left out of sports. When it came to COVID, Anthony Towns, my mama this, my mama that, okay? Keep that out of sports, okay? Now, when you talk about the games that are being shown on mainstream, those are the big markets. Now these star players in little markets are not even being shown. You can't even market them properly because you're barely showing these cats because they play in Portland. They play in, the Bucks, come on, what's going on here? And unfortunately, to end off here, I don't have any solutions. I'm not sure this is fixable because there's multiple issues here. Okay, I can't say shorten the regular season because they just signed a TV deal with media rights. They need to make that money back. Okay, that's the reality of the situation, folks. The NBA is dead and is no longer relevant in America, and analytics is not the sole reason why.
Yeah, I really just think the commissioner is the number one person to blame. He's the number one culprit right now. And I think that this NBA in-season cup is just such an embarrassing look because it's really the league admitting that they have a huge problem when it comes to their regular season, and they do. And that's the thing about it, Will, is I still think there are plenty of people in this country that care about the NBA and are really into it, but they don't really get into it until the playoffs. That's really the boat I sit in. I'll be locked into every playoff game, but when it comes to the regular season, the league itself doesn't prioritize it, so why should I? And you hit on some of those points. Load management, that's been going on for years now. The style of play with all of these threes, that's definitely something that's gotten worse in the last few years, but it's just not a watchable product in the regular season, and that's something that needs to be fixed, especially with these. You mentioned the new media deal. They're paying a lot of money for these games, and that's another thing too about we spoke about Mahomes. I think Netflix, when he first got hurt, they're probably pretty upset, like, damn, we got the Chiefs for this Christmas doubleheader. We want to have the biggest star in the league out there, but part of me also thinks
Swift
that
audience.
Say that
Don't
again?
forget about Taylor Swift.
But I will say too, if Mahomes doesn't play against the Steelers on Christmas on Netflix, the ratings are still going to be out of control. It's the NFL on Christmas. We saw on Thanksgiving the Cowboys are playing the Giants in a meaningless game, and that was one of Fox's biggest rated games all season. That Netflix game, whether Mahomes plays or not, I'm confident that rating is going to be really good because people care about the NFL. Despite the product not really being great this year, it's still in a different universe compared to the NBA, and that's the power of the NFL. Mahomes might not play, but that game is going to draw a big rating. In the NBA, if your stars aren't playing, then what exactly is the point? And I think that's really a problem they've run into. And I think the commissioner is really who you have to blame. The fact that they have to put on this farce in-season cup, like, it matters. Like, I know they're playing for money, but that money doesn't matter to the first 8 or 9 guys coming off the bench. That they're making plenty. Now, does it matter a little bit for some of the bottom tier guys off the bench? Sure, but they're just trying to hype it into something. It's a standalone game tonight on ABC. Does anyone care? Does anyone have any real opinions on this Thunder Bucks game for the NBA Cup?
We won the tournament. Woohoo! No. And look, salute to my guy Prince, who was on the show that I did last week. I mean, he made a very funny point, but it's it's really funny when you think about it. I mean, the NFL is so big that it's its own political party. You got Democrats, you got Republicans, and you got the NFL. That's how big it is. Mike is yours.
Plenty of problems for the NBA, and it's unfortunate because I know I'm going to be locked in when the playoffs come and go, but until then, it's a long wait. For my take for 99, I wanted to go into the NFL, and I did want to mention a team that is most likely going to be in the playoffs, but they haven't come up on this show yet, and I have some thoughts on them after their loss on Sunday, and that's the Chargers. They lost to the Buccaneers 40-17 on Sunday, and that was a crazy game because the Chargers started the game off really well. They were up 17-13 at half, and then got outscored 27-0 in the second half. The Buccaneers really ran away with that one. And going into this game, my question was, which one of these two teams is more capable of making a deep run in the playoffs? Is it the Buccaneers or is it the Chargers? And before this game, my answer was the Chargers because you have a coach that's been to an NFC Championship game before in Jim Harbaugh. You have a quarterback that's really good. You're paying a lot of money to him in Justin Herbert. You have a defense that's really good. But this is now the second time this month where the Chargers have had a home game against a team that is really good, that's going to be in the playoffs. We saw them on Monday Night Football against the Ravens, and they just haven't really shown up in either game. And that's a little bit of a concern. And I just feel like when it comes to this team, if they want to do anything in the playoffs, they need to unleash Justin Herbert. I am tired of watching this conservative play calling with Justin Herbert. And it's kind of ironic because I think they're doing it because they just don't want him to turn the ball over. And for the most part, he hasn't this season. But he did turn the ball over on Sunday. He wasn't able to execute in the second half of that game. He threw short of the sticks twice on fourth down. And look, I understand that when you look at this team's weapons, they're not ideal, right? They lost Keenan Allen, they lost Mike Williams. Neither of those guys are really that good anymore, but you're relying on two very young wide receivers in Ladd McConkey and Quentin Johnston to be those top guys. Also, it's apparent that without J.K. Dobbins, this running game has completely fallen off a cliff. But I just feel like this is a game where I wanted to see Justin Herbert play better. The Buccaneers defense has not been playing well. They've had a lot of trouble tackling. They also got Ladd McConkey back. He was healthy. He didn't play in the game prior against Kansas City, and they just completely no-showed the second half. Herbert threw for under 200 yards. The Chargers as a team have scored exactly 17 points in each of their last 3 games. And although the weapons on this team aren't necessarily the best, you're paying Justin Herbert a lot of money. And I did think that at points this season, he was making other guys around him better. And I just didn't see that on Sunday in Tampa Bay. Baker Mayfield was great. Put up 40 points for the Buccaneers against the Chargers defense. Again, I thought they were good, but every time recently this Chargers defense has faced a good team, they've gotten completely shredded. And I just feel like if this team plays the Bills in the first round, there's a good chance they could get ran off the field. If they play the Steelers, a team they already lost to this season, could they go on the road and win that game? I'm not sure. Could they do that against Baltimore? Well, they already lost to Baltimore at home. I just want to see the Chargers unleash Justin Herbert and be a little bit more aggressive, because the way he's playing right now, it's just not getting the job done. I was pretty disappointed in him and the team's effort on Sunday against Tampa Bay. Again, getting outscored 27-0 in the second half. One of the more surprising results I've seen in an NFL game this season.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think the Buccaneers are definitely a bigger threat in the playoffs compared to the Chargers. I don't think the Chargers are a team that's going to compete this year. Even when they were winning games and, beating the Bengals in prime time, I mean, that win is not really that big of a win when you think about it. Because even though Higgins and Jamar Chase went off in that second half, I mean, the Bengals are what they are this year. More than likely not a playoff team, a January-bound home team, And clearly, when you talk about the Chargers, man, they haven't been finishing second half of football games. The second half has been their nemesis. And Jim Harbaugh, I do believe in what he's doing and the blueprint that he's leaving for the future. But it's a little bit disheartening to see them still lose games in the second half of football games. Like the Chiefs game, they should have won that game. There were a lot of meat left on the bone for them to lose that game when they should have won that game. And obviously the Ravens game, the second half of the game, it wasn't really a close game, right? The Chiefs game, the first time, they were up 10-0. What happened in the second half? They did nothing. The offense did nothing, literally, in the second half of the football game. So the fact of the matter is they're still struggling to close out games in the fourth quarter. And I'm not liking that, with the exception of the Bengals game in the fourth quarter when Justin Herbert did everything to lose that game in the second half of the game too. But he had one good drive because the Bengals were missing field goals, right? So clearly there's an issue in the second half of ball games with the Chargers. Now, back to that point about the comparison with the Buccaneers and the Chargers, because they played, obviously, you look at that game, the second half of the game, what happened? Even go back to the Steelers real quickly before we come back. They were good in the first half, and they lost that game in the second half. I don't know what's going on. But back to that point about the Buccaneers, you got Todd Bowles. He's one of the best defensive coordinators in the league, even though he's a head coach. He calls plays defensively. And we saw what he did in the Super Bowl. When he played that too high, cover 2 look against Mahomes, and how Mahomes only had 9 points in that game. So clearly they're a bigger threat, because of coaching and whatnot when it comes to and their team in general. They have a better team than the Chargers. So yeah, if I'm going to the Chargers and looking at them more directly, I am discouraged with what I've been seeing with them in the second half. And I don't think they're legitimate, contenders in the playoffs, barring that they get there, even with the quarterback that they do have in Justin Herbert.
Yeah, I mean, just for me, and I see what you're saying about Todd Bowles, but I just feel like watching that game, Justin Herbert made some really bad mistakes, and he has to be better than that when you're paying him that much money. And I know you're someone that has always been very high on Herbert, even dating back to his rookie year. Like, how has he played this year compared to your expectations? Do you think this has been a good year for him, a great year, a not so good year? Like,
I've seen some good things and bad things. It's really hard to put into context because the year was a roller coaster, and I was expecting that per se. I didn't expect the Chargers to be. I did predict them to make the playoffs. I believe I did, and they're literally still right there to do that. So clearly, they met my expectations to a certain degree, but it's really been up and down. I've seen good things. I've seen bad things. I've seen him bring back mobility in certain spots, which is a good thing. I've seen him turn the ball over, which is a bad thing. So it's really up and down. And, when you really think about it from a microcosm lens, we should have expected that with the pieces that they lost, with the quote unquote competitive rebuilding situation and working magic that Jim Harbaugh had to do. They right where we thought they would have been anyway. So and some people would say better. So yeah.
And they have a big game on Thursday Night Football against the Denver Broncos. I think the winner of that game this week is really just a shoo-in to make the playoffs. And they're in good spot either way. By the way, before we get out of here, Lil, 2 last thoughts. I picked this Chargers opinion for my take for 99. I just wanted to say this. You know, both of us have been watching football a long time. I have never seen a bigger mistake in a game, not only a game, but an important game, a de facto playoff game, than we saw on Sunday when Jonathan Taylor, a guy that has been in the league a very long time, he's making good money as a running back. The Colts were winning in that game. They were up 13-7. If he scores a touchdown there, it is 20-7. And the Colts, keep in mind, too, their schedule is very easy down the stretch. They play the Titans, they play the Giants, they play the Jaguars. And Jonathan Taylor literally gave that game away. I have not seen a play recently just as dumb and as costly as that. And I still can't believe he dropped that ball. I just wanted to bring that up throughout the show today. That is a play that I will never forget because the Broncos took advantage from there. They really took over the game. Shane Steichen, he supported his guy after the game, but my God, I mean, that is a mistake that cannot happen. Jonathan Taylor fumbling the ball there. I just wanted to bring that up.
I mean, yeah, I think, it's unfortunate that happened. It goes to show you that a lot of these players have, just show me I personalities. A lot of these players, they like to celebrate before they get in the end zone, and clearly that's costly. We almost had the same situation with the Buccaneers and the Falcons with Kyle Pitts. Listen, that could have been a fumble right there. He got literally escaped. He escaped from what would have been a level of criticisms for that. And clearly with everything that's happening right now with Tampa and how they got a little lead over the Falcons. The Falcons, that could have been a bigger lead as well because that was a turning point of the game. Yeah, you can't do it. That cannot happen, especially with a guy that hasn't been in the end zone for a long time. I mean, look at Jonathan Taylor's career. I mean, he got paid. We was expecting good things, and he's not the same player he was before he got the bag. So to cap it off with that mistake, bad look.
And he's one of the leaders of the team. It can't happen. One more thing I wanted to bring up, Lil. Raheem Morris, the guy that we started this show today talking about him in the Falcons quarterback situation. He was asked about any possible quarterback decisions during the show. About an hour ago, this came out, and he declined to name a starting quarterback for Week 16 against the Giants. He noted that they returned late last night and are still in the evaluation process. So Raheem Morris continuing to be very non-committal when it comes to keeping Kirk Cousins at quarterback.
We'll see what he ultimately decides to do because it's definitely going to be franchise altering and season ending. And ladies and gentlemen, that wraps up another episode of 99 Pod. It was a good one. And Zach, as always, I'm looking forward to the next.
Absolutely, my man. Always a great time.
Please like and subscribe for all the up-to-date content. You've been slinging shows left and right, slinging content left and right. Please don't miss anything. If you do, like, subscribe, leave a comment, leave a question, something you may want to answer, something you may have. All ideas are great ideas. Nothing's a dumb question.